everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Crimson, and in this video we are going to be continuing and finishing our look through of the Warhammer 40,000 10th edition Adepta Sororitas Codex. So we tackled a lot of the named characters, especially some of the playable characters in part 1. So we will be continuing where we left off, and yeah, without any further ado, let's just get right into it. So here we have the section on the Orders Militant. Now, I'm not going to be reading it all. I am just going to be reading the first paragraph. So, spread across the galaxy, the Adepta Sororitas is a sprawling organization of multiple orders. Its order militants are the martial wing to the sisterhood, possessing sanctuaries in every corner of the Imperium. They can respond to and combat threats to the Imperium faith wherever they are. So, good little introduction to the next section, and the next section is the bit that I've been looking forward to the most, and that is the different. So these are the different orders of the Adepta Sororitas. So they are not all, let me rephrase that. While they all believe in the same thing, they are not all on the same page on how to achieve this goal and the best way to combat foes. So there are, I believe there's 6 in total here, and let us get started. So the first one is the Order of our Martyred Lady. I should just also say this just because it's a good comparison. Every single Imperium faction, I'm not sure about Chaos or Xenos, has different units that do things differently, even though they're all part of the same order. So while all of these women are on the same side, their method of doing things and their preferred way of you're going to start off with the Order of our Martyred Lady. The other unit is yet another Martyred Lady miniature. However, this one has a helmet on, has a bolter. Actually, they both have bolters, but also has a chainsword, which is something that I don't really expect from these kind of gals. So, I really like the Sororitas. They're one of my favorite factions, just because. Okay, so now let's move on to our fourth and final character, Sororita. Now, just before I get started, I just want to address one thing. I am recording this the next day from when I recorded Stern. When I was recording Stern and Celestine, I was extremely sleep deprived, and as such my reading ability was bad to the point that I was stumbling, making mistakes, and all that kind of stuff. So I have since gotten a good amount of sleep for me. So I got 2 hours of sleep, which is like a godsend for me. So I am much more awake now, and I will be able to provide a better reading experience. So let's dive right in. So Sororita, Voice of the Martyred. Sororita sweeps into battle wreathed in holy fire and holding high the mace of castigation, riding with the pulpit of Saint Holland's riding with the pulpit of St. Holstein, riding with the pulpit of St. Hollian's Basilica, she covers across the battlefield upon thrumming waves of holy energy. The pulpit's heavy flamers swivel seamlessly. Sorry. The pulpit's heavy flamers swivel seemingly on their own accord, seeking out the heretical and the faithless, immolating them without mercy. From her first days in the Schola Progenitor, it was remarked that Junith exhibited an almost frightening intensity of faith. Often during the Gethysphone massacre, Iarita's traumatic experience has scarred her. Yet she did not break, but rather focused her rage against mankind's enemies while cleaving to the absolute belief that the Emperor watched over his people. By the time she joined the ranks of the Order of Our Martyred Lady, Iarita was already being watched with interest by its then canoness superior, Maria Somnation. Iarita's talent for inspirational address, intensity of faith, her somewhat maniacal fondness for the prodigious skill with flamer weapons, all had been noted by her drill abbots and suggested great things to come. Somnation was not disappointed. Sister Iarita took the role of retributor. A retributor is like a sister of battle with a heavy weapon, with fervor, becoming both the inspirational linchpin for her squad and a truly ferocious warrior with her anointed heavy flamer. In the fullness of time, Iarita rose to the position of Celestine, plying her flames of purgation as one of the canoness's superior bodyguards. In that role, she fought at Somnatian side across the killing fields of Fodoro, through the purge of the Nightmare Hive, and even at the gates of the city of the Poisoned King. Then came Hollion's Hope, and a fateful advance under fierce shelling from the heretical Iron Warriors. The Sororitas had just secured the blasted shell of St. Hollian's Basilica when a salvo of missiles crashed down upon it. The vaulted roof collapsed. The tall bastion towers fell. Hundreds of sisters died. Hundreds of sisters died as the strain. Hundreds of sisters died as the structure caved in, and Somnation was among them. It was then that the wounded Eurytus scaled the stair leading to the miraculously untouched pulpit from which St. Hollian had once preached. Fire rained down all around her, but neither shot nor shell touched the pulpit as Eureka delivered a blistering address to her surviving sisters, every eye lit with faith renewed, and with a mighty cry the warriors of the Order of Our Martyred Lady swept onwards to a costly but decisive victory. Eureka ascended to replace Maria the next day. Appointed by the grace of the Emperor himself, the pulpit which Junith Eureka broadcasted her fiery invective was removed from Ceto and fitted with weaponry and anti-grav suspensors to transform it into a mobile platform. The Canoness Superior has ridden to war in this blessed pulpit ever since. Eureka has since been deployed to Sangua Terra to marshal its defenders and hold back the forces of chaos. Arriving upon the benighted world, the Canoness Superior found a battle-scarred hellscape overrun by demons and traitors. The full extent of their fiery oration, unwavering faith, and martial wrath will be required if Sangua Terra is to be saved. So she is an extremely skilled warrior. She was personally taken under the wing of her superior, and if anything, the loss of her superior just bolstered her morale to continue on fighting, which is really, really cool. Okay, so let us move on. So next is the Holy Orders, and then we have the Orders Militant. So let's just dive right into the Orders Militant. So, the Orders Militant. Spread across the galaxy, the Adepta Sororitas is a sprawling organization of multiple orders. Its Orders Militant are the martial wing of the Sisterhood, possessing sanctuaries in every corner of the Imperium. They can respond to and combat threats to the Imperial faith wherever they arise. The first four Orders Militant of the Adeptus Sororitas were founded in the decades following the death of Goje Vandire at the hands of Amelissa Dominica. They were named the Fiery Heart, later to become the Order of Our Martyred Lady. The Ebon Chalice, the Valorous Heart, and the Argent Shroud. It wasn't until the 38th millennium that two further orders, the Order of the Sacred Rose and the Order of the Bloody Rose, were raised into existence by Ecclesiarch Dacis VI. The six orders, each founded in honor of one of the six matriarchs, and are collectively known as the Orders Majoris. So these are essentially the six main different factions of Sororitas. So similar to how Space Marines have different chapters and legions, and the Imperial Guard has different regiments and stuff, the Sororitas are the same, with six different orders, all with different color paint schemes for their armor and different strategies and preferred weaponry. So you have a good amount of room to kind of choose which order is for you, which is one of the things I really like about this army. It is quite versatile. And those are just the main six. There are others, but we'll get to them when we get to them. The Orders Majoris will still remain the most well-known orders of the Adepta Sororitas across the Imperium. Every sister within their ranks is a potent warrior dedicated to achieving purity of spirit through martial performance. To this end, the Sisterhood undertakes stringent and punishing training regimes and study the doctrine and study the doctrine of their order's matriarch with the painstaking attention of a true scholar. Every ordained sister of the Orders Militant possesses incredible skill at arms and tactical awareness. Their martial cohesion and ferociousness are driven by their intense faith in the Imperial Creed. Each of the Orders Majoris maintains a nominal headquarters within one of these two great convents. The huge fortified shrine complex, which between them govern all of the lesser subdivisions of the Adepta Sororitas. The Covenant Prioris on Terra hosts the Order of the Argent Shroud, Ebon Chalice, and Sacred Rose. The Covenant Sanctorum on Ophelia 7, the oldest of the cardinal worlds, is hailed as the traditional home of the orders of our Martyred Lady, the Bloody Rose, and the Valorant Heart. Yet beyond these gargantuan holy structures, the orders hold stewardship over divisions of the Imperium referred to parishes. Within their designated parishes, each order has established a score of fortified sanctuaries, spiritual and military holdfasts from which to strike at their enemies. Parishes vary in size, with the largest covering immense areas of space. Yet wars of faith do not stop at parish boundaries. While there are heretics to burn and Xenos to purge, all of the Orders Majoris possess several smaller chapels well beyond the borders of the assigned territories. These additional outposts are established and maintained to extend the influence of the order by the extension of the ecclesiarchy. The maintenance of the Great Rift and the division of the Imperium into Sanctum and Nihilus has led to many Sanctorum of the Orders Militant being cut off. Unable to contact their covenant or call upon reinforcements, many of these isolated forces were consumed by the warp storms or slaughtered by rampaging chaos entities. Others, however, continued to fight alone against the myriad threats that assailed their sanctuaries or protected worlds, standing as beacons of human defiance amidst the encroaching despair. The mustering of the Indominus Crusade fleets, considered the most holy and endeavorous of the Ecclesiarch, saw great numbers of battle sisters mustered from the Orders Militant at the behest of the Adeptus Ministorum. Fleet Secundus counts the greatest number of Adepta Sororitas warriors in its ranks. This fleet has forged a bloody path, known as the Road of Martyrs, towards the Eye of Terror, restoring the Emperor's light to dozens of worlds, and rallying fanatical warbands of Fraterus Militia to its cause. Fleet Secundus has drawn the ire of many a chaos worshipper, and continues to both inflict and suffer terrible losses as its purpose is brutal campaign of righteous vengeance across the stars. So that is the Orders Militant summed up. So pretty cool. So we find out what worlds are kind of home to what orders and how they work together and stuff like that. One thing that is different to the orders of the Sororitas versus, say, the different factions and legions of Space Marines is that the sisters do not fight among themselves. So it's not like the Space Marines, where two chapters will get in a fight because they believe something slightly different than each other. The different orders of the Sororitas are all on the same side always. They just have a slight different way of going about it. So for example, one group may prefer to use flamers as their main weapon, whereas the others may prefer to use bolters, stuff like that, instead of, killing each other over such trivial matters. But anyway, let us move on to our next page. So this is the start of our next section. So this is going to be the information about the 6 main orders. So we are going to start with the Order of our Martyred Lady. And we can see a picture here of a martyred lady Sororitas. She appears to be holding up something called a simulacrum, which is a type of almost like a banner or like a rallying flag or fetish that these sisters use in battle. It is comprised of a group of skulls. I don't know if you can make out the skulls in the middle here on this pole. So there isn't actually a flag. For example, in the in the Imperial Guard Codex, I gave an example of how the Krieg have a banner of both a flag and skulls, whereas the Sororitas, for the simulacrum anyway, just use the skulls, and they're essentially in a box. So with that out of the way, let's get started on the Order of our Martyred Lady. Okay, so let's get started with our first order, the Order of our Martyred Lady, the God Emperor's fiery sword. The blazing fires of vengeance burn brightly within every sister of the Order of the Martyred Lady. They are deliverers of the Emperor's divine justice, committed to his service regardless of the sacrifice they must make. To the sound of impassioned prayers do they rain unrelenting destruction upon their enemies. The mission of the preceptors of the Order of the Martyred Lady are distributed widely across the galaxy. Their name known by the ruling elites and toiling masses alike of countless imperial worlds. The Emperor is... The Order is aggressive and tenacious in its pursuit of any who defy the Emperor or inflict harm on his realm or its subjects. All transgressors be they Xenos, heretic, or mutant apostate, are subjected to the sisters' pitiless fury, and their bodies heaped up on upon the pyre. So they burn mutants, Xenos, and heretics at the stake, which is, very, very reasonable thing to do. Initially led by Saint Catherine, the Order of our Martyred Lady was one of the first of the orders majoris to be founded. First known as the Order of the Fiery Heart. The order was renamed in the wake of its matriarch's martyrdom during one of the many wars of faith. Such was the grief felt by the orders upon Catherine's demise that its sisters resolved to embark upon an endless crusade of vengeance. In the honor they would become the Order of our Martyred Lady, and have sought to enact retribution upon the enemies of the imperial creed ever since. The death of Saint Catherine has formed a cult of martyrdom amongst the order that is unparalleled within the sisterhood. All of the Emperor's faithful believe that death in his service is a glorious fate. Yet the Order of our Martyred Lady expresses this belief so openly that they often appear to possess a death wish in battle. Even in the face of certain doom, the Order's sisters will stand tall and refuse to retreat. Defiant prayers and bolt gunfire continuing until the last of the Order until the last of the Order has fallen, their souls offered willingly to the God Emperor, Far from being disheartened, those battle sisters who witness such selfless acts of martyrdom are emboldened. Voices are raised in rapturous praise for the slain, for for such faith and loyalty will surely earn the Emperor's blessing. In battle, the sisters are aggressive in their advances, attacking across wide fronts and spreading through the enemy line like wildfire. The aggression does not just come at the cost of discipline, just as their matriarch was a student and a teacher of military doctrine, so the canoness and palatines who led the armies are keen-minded commanders. When given the sisters order their charge, when given, the sisters under their charge can respond to complex orders at a moment's notice. Quote, "Pity not the unbelievers, sisters, for they are unworthy of compassion. Unto the heretic and the blasphemous offer no quarter with fire and bolter. We shall cleanse the stain of this world only in their final agonizing moments, as the fires of damnation consume them. Their souls and their lies of the patrons will be revealed. Shall these base heathens know the true cost of their treachery? Sister Superior, Amalia Noveno, Order of our Martyred Lady." So that's a quote from her. So that is the end of the Martyred Lady section. Now, for my Sororitas army that I play the Martyred Lady. Normally, I choose my Warhammer armies based on lore reasons, whether a specific character or a faction, but I always tend to go with what I find interesting in the lore. The Martyred Ladies, however, are the exception to that. Now, while their lore is exceptional, it is really, really good. The reason I chose them, and this is kind of embarrassing, is because I just like their paint scheme. I think their red, black, and white armor scheme is really cool. I think those colors go incredibly together. They are the order that you think of if you've ever seen any promotional material of a Sister of Battle. It is 90% chance that it is a Martyred Lady sister. They are kind of like the Ultramarines of the Sororitas in terms of they are the Games Workshop's poster boys, or actually in this case poster women for the Sororitas. So before we move on to the next order, which is the Order of the Valorous Heart, I would just quickly like to show you some of the units of the Order of the Martyred Lady. So starting off, we are just going to first go over some of the standard infantry in my Martyred Lady army. So the Martyred Lady color scheme is red, white, and black, as well as having white hair. By the way, if you are more interested in my Sororitas army as a whole, I will put a link to that video in the description, and I will put a quick picture of the video on screen. So these are just some examples of some basic standard sisters. So we start off with her. So she is a sister. She has her helmet on with a chainsword high in the air and a bolter in her other hand. Then we have this sister. If I can get it to focus, there we go. So she does not have a helmet on. As you can see, she has the white hair, but also has the bolter. I'm not really good at faces, but I think she turned out pretty well. Next, we have this lady, who has no helmet with shorter, kind of like a bob style haircut, but also has a melter. So, like it said earlier in the book, you know, the three preferred forms of, or the three preferred weapons of the Sororitas are the bolter, the flamer, and the melter. And then over here we have a sister with the simulacrum. So I mentioned the simulacrum earlier of this kind of battle standard, and this is it here. As you can see, it has a bunch of skulls inside, and she is holding it up very, very proudly. So really, like, these are just examples of some of the more basic types of infantry for the martyred lady. So next we have these four. Now these four are a little bit more specialized infantry, however they are not quite considered elite infantry, so they're almost like a middle ground between the elites and your standard battle sister. So we'll start on the left with the Retributor. So as you can see here, she is covered head to heel in her armor with her helmet. I am always a big proponent of helmets on miniatures, always, so whenever I get the chance, I always use my helmets. Now, the reason that they are called Retributors is because they have these massive two-handed guns. I'm not sure what this gun is. It looks like a multi-melter, but I could be mistaken, but they are very, very powerful units. The next we have is a Palatine. So the Palatine, let me just put her down, sorry. First off, we'll just have a look at her. So she has her hair down, it's kind of medium length white with the golden arch on her backpack, and a plasma pistol in one hand and a whip in the other with a sword on her belt. So she is strapped. Now, they serve, by they I mean Palatines, they serve as lieutenants to canonesses. So, kind of making a way up the chain of command here, but they are also good at inspiring their troops below them. So they are almost like the equivalent of a sergeant in the Sororitas. Yeah, let's move on. So next up we have this girl, and she is called a Celestian Sacrosanct. So before we get into what she actually is and does, let's just have a look at the model. So she is primarily red. They come with a varied amount of melee weapons, from swords to halberds to spears to maces. I gave her this mace here, as well as having a shield with the Sororitas logo on it. And she also does not have a helmet, but she has a hood instead, which I think is very cool. It just goes to differentiate the units. So she excels in close quarters combat, having a melee weapon and a shield. Now, admittedly, they are not the best unit in 40k for the Sororitas. They weren't the best unit in 9th edition, and they aren't the best unit currently in 10th edition. However, I know I said that Saint Celestine is my favorite model in terms of like named characters, but for standard infantry, these ladies, the Sacrosancts, are my favorite. I just think they look amazing. And next we have the Sister Dogmata. So this is the Dogmata here. Again, as you can see, she has red robes with grey and armor with gold accents. Now, despite her having this kind of club, this is more of like a ceremonial club rather than something to be used in war. In-game, they are used much more as a support role in terms of buffing allies. Personally, just from what I've seen in the community, a lot of people do not like the sister dogmattas. However, I adore them. I have like 3 or 4 of them. I just think they are really, really cool. But that's just me. Anyway, let's move on to our final batch. So here is our final batch of miniatures that I'm going to be showing you about the Martyred Lady army. So we are going to start off with the lowest rank in here. So we had mentioned previously that the, if this can focus, that the, so this is a canoness. Now I have her painted here with red and gold. She has a white hood and lots of gold kind of given her station. Now we saw earlier that the Palatine was directly below the canoness in terms of rank. So this is the canoness here. Now she serves 2 purposes. She is a very important unit as she is a leader, but she can both lead and attack and also buff nearby allies, so she can do both. Very good unit to have, and it's always important to have at least one of these per a certain amount of infantry, so that you're able to inspire them and deal damage to protect them. Next, we have a couple of flying enemies, which are really cool. I was never a fan of flying enemies until we started, or until I started my army. So first off, this is a Seraphim. So the Seraphim are actually really good at capturing and holding objectives, but their biggest strength is doing hit and run attacks, seeing as they have a jetpack. So as you can see here, this one here is dual wielding bolt pistols, which is very powerful. So being able to like fly around the map and just essentially take pot shots and then fly away is very good, and just kind of whittles your enemy down slowly but surely. Great model. I absolutely love him to bits. Now, her to bits. I don't know why I keep saying him. Next up, we have a very similar model, but this is a Zephyrim instead of a Seraphim. So what is the difference between the two? So Zephyrim are very similar to the Seraphim in terms of movement, but what they are used for is completely different. The Seraphim, like I said, is good at holding objectives and taking objectives, whereas the Zephyrim is just good at killing enemies. They are much more powerful, they are much more accurate, and they can take a lot more damage. Again, they all come with bolt pistols, so having 10 of these like I do, and having them all zip around the map, taking pot shots at certain enemies, especially some of the elite units, which can be damaged by the bolt pistol, is what I tend to do with them. Very good unit, very much underrated. Next up, we have this unit. So this is a unit called a Hospitaller. Let me just get it into the light. So the Hospitaller's main role in the army is of a medic, but they are also capable of buffing and blessing allies. But they are mainly used as medics. So as you can see here in this model, and this is the way all of the models come, she has doves around her. She has some prosthetics on her back with some medical equipment like this needle. And you can see a mortally wounded or wounded, I actually can't tell if she's just wounded or mortally wounded, Sororitas on the ground. So I'm assuming that the Hospitaller is going to try and save her. So these guys are actually not super common to be played with. I have never played against someone with a Sororitas army who has one of these, but I have 2 of them just because I really like the model and I think they were so much fun to paint. Next up, we have the highest rank in the Sororitas tabletop army, at least, and that is the Dialogus. So to put it very simply, actually let's just look at the model first off. So we see her here in her robe with her podium with some scripture, her staff with some purity seals, and then behind her, strapped to her back, is more scripture with candles burning, and it's open on a page, presumably on a specific paragraph or passage. So what they do in the game is they are people who, or units who buff other units. I believe that they can participate in combat, but extremely poorly. I'm not sure, I've never actually used one in combat, but they are very much a support unit. So on one hand, you want to keep them back, but on the other hand, you want to keep them moving up with your infantry so that you can keep blessing your infantry, because the way their blessings and buffs work is on nearby allies, so you can't like buff someone halfway across the map. And finally, last but not least, absolutely not least, is my Paragon Warsuit, if I can get this to focus. So last but definitely not least is one of my Paragon Warsuits. Now this is another one of my favorite units in the infantry army. So this is a Sister of Battle, as you can see, inside of a massive mech suit, and the things that this unit can do are crazy. So let us just list them off. Actually, before we do that, let's have a look at the model. So you can see the armor. You can see a bunch of tubes going all around her, presumably giving her stuff like medicine, painkillers, stimulants, and all that fun stuff. So she excels in melee. As you can see, I have her with a sword. You can also give them spears or maces, but I just chose this one at random, and she turned out to have a sword, as well as a heavy bolter. As you can see, the magazine on this thing is massive, and this is connected directly to the armor suit. Now, the other great thing about this unit is they are extremely good at anti-vehicle, which is rare for the Sororitas. They have no infantry that are good against vehicles except these guys. These guys can run, these girls can run extremely fast, and the devastation they cause with their grenades is insane. So they are extremely good at destroying tanks and other armored vehicles. But that is it for the miniatures, so that is my miniature tangent aside. Let us get back to the book. Okay, so our next order is the Order of the Valorous Heart. Now, this order's color scheme is mainly black, with a lot of the sisters having brown hair. The hair part isn't really an official part of the order's colors. It just tends to be what people paint them. Whereas the actual armor colors are specific to each order. So let's read what it says about the Order of the Valorous Heart. So the Sisters of the Valorous Heart are willing to bear tremendous pain and suffering in order to bring death to the Emperor's enemies, just as their matriarch, Saint Lucia, endured unimaginable torture. So do they face grueling hardship and attritional warfare. With stoic defiance and pious fervousness. The practices of the Order of the Valorous Heart owe much to their matriarch, Saint Lucia. Lucia was seen by Amelissa Damanisa as her more dependable ally, a calming presence whose serene nature kept in check the passion of her warlike sisters. Since its founding, the Order has gained a reputation for aggressively seeking out worlds in the grip of heresy, sorcery, and mutation, and setting themselves in the thankless task of rooting out and destroying all traces of the faithless and rebellion. The Order possesses the bloody-minded determination to engage in prolonged conflict in its abhorrent conditions, often in environments inimical to human life. These tactics and methods of war, as effective as they are also a form of penance. In the first address to her fledgling order, Saint Lucia explained that Adepta Sororitas would carry the weight of atonement for the actions that their matriarch took in supporting Goge Vandir before his despicable heresy was revealed. The Sisters of the Valorous Heart bear this burden with stoic determination. That actually sounds very similar to the Krieg, where they take it upon themselves to act in extreme piousness as an order of atonement for the heresy and betrayal of someone that they supported and looked up to, in this case, this being Goge Vandir. Lucia met her death at the hands of a heretic cult. Captured and tortured over many months, Lucia's eyes were gouged out and she was made to listen to the screams of 1,000 innocents as they were tortured in increasingly elaborate and monstrous ways. Amongst those who met this fate were a group of her sisters, none of whom uttered even a sound as they endured these horrors, so as not to cause the matriarch any more pain. That's actually really, really nice. Lucia eventually died, with the cultists claiming to have broken her spirit. Over the following decades, however, her sisters tracked down and interrogated every single cultist. I'm assuming that by interrogated they mean, torture, but maybe that's just my opinion. Sorry, where was I? All of whom admitted to lying about the matriarch's lapse of faith. What became of the heretics is not known outside the order, save for a contingent of sister hospitallers from the Order of the Silent Vows, has been seconded to the Sisters of the Valorous Heart ever since, and have been putting their knowledge of life extension and pain enhancement to use deep beneath the sanctuary of Lucia's reprisal. Quote, "Suffering is to be expected and pain to be embraced. Each torturous agony inflicted upon our flesh brings us closer to the matriarch. If we are to aspire to her example, then we must endure as she endured. We must remain pure of heart and strong of faith, no matter the horrors afflicted upon our mortal forms. All praise to Saint Lucia, all praise to the God Emperor." And this was a quote by Palatine Dorota Meridia, Order of the Valorous Heart. The Sisters of the Valorous Heart utilized unique strategies to confound and destroy their myriad foes. Be them heretics, mutants, or xenos. After praying to the Emperor and their matriarch for the fortitude to endure the horrors of battle, to endure the horrors of battle to come. The Order of the Valorous Heart launched targeted offensive that cut off enemies' routes and supplies and retreat. With the enemy movements restricted, the Order begins to destroy any infrastructure that may support their foe in the coming war. Water supplies are drained or poisoned, fuel supplies are set ablaze, and the atmosphere is seeded with noxious gases. Food production facilities and spaceports are also targeted, with material being seized or destroyed. The battlefield is turned into a barren desert, following the opponents to engage in the type of grinding war of attrition to which the Order's sisters are already inured. That is an amazing bit of lore about the Order of the Valorous Heart. If I didn't already have my army, I think the Order of the Valorous Heart might be my favorite just based on lore. If I was going to pick an army based on lore, like if I had to go back, I'd probably choose this one, but just I much prefer the colors of the Martyred Lady. But anyway, really, really cool. And on the side here, we see a picture of a sister in her colors. So, next up. So next we have the Order of the Bloody Rose. And as you can see here, their armor is pure red, with either brown or yellow hair. Again, I'm not sure. I don't think the hair color is actually important, but the just armor color is. So whereas the Martyred Lady are black, white, and red with just like red accents on their armor, the Bloody Rose is pure red. So if you like red, I would recommend them. The only reason, or one of the reasons I did not get this order is because I already have a Blood Angels army, and I think having one all-red army is quite enough. So let's read what it says about the Order of the Bloody Rose. So, the Order of the Bloody Rose, the fires of the righteous anger. The Order of the Bloody Rose are the embodiment of the Emperor's hatred toward the heretic, the psyker, and the mutant. That's interesting that this is the first mention of someone hating psykers. We've heard of them hating mutants and xenos and demons, but this is the first time we've heard of an order hating psykers. Their wars of faith are not waged to save the innocent, but to slaughter the guilty, for only in death can the vile be made pure. So from that little bit, it appears that this order is a lot more violent compared to the others. But let's read the rest first. So let's read the rest. In addition to her martial prowess, Saint Mina was known for her dark and brooding nature. Surviving records from the Age of Apostasy claim she acted as Alyssa Dominicia's champion, and that during Sebastian Thor's assault on Terra, she fought some of humanity's mightiest warriors. The most outlandish tales state that Mina dueled one of the mighty custodians who sought to parley with the daughters of the emperor. I remember during the Age of Apostasy, the Sororitas were known as the daughters of the emperor. Where was I? And that the two fought to a standstill before an accord was reached. The precise truth of these tales matter not to the Order of the Bloody Rose, who venerate their matriarch as an exemplar of a martial virtues of the daughters of the emperor and strive to attain her skeleton arms. If that is true and she dueled a custodian to a standstill, that is crazy, because custodians can wipe the floor with even the strongest space marine. So for a Adepta Sororitas to fight one to a standstill is like crazy. If you aren't familiar with Warhammer, you probably don't get the significance of this, but if you are familiar with Warhammer, then you know that this is like then you know that like this is unheard of. So continuing, where was I? In the contrast of their fellow orders, the Sisters of the Bloody Rose are viewed not so much as protectors or saviors of the imperial faith, but the vengeful executioners. They prioritize the destruction of their enemies over the liberation of their opponents. The liberation of the oppressed, reasoning that the swift slaughter of enemies is the surest way to prevent further evil. Only when the last enemy has been slain may time be spared for compassion. Those inducted into the ranks of the Bloody Rose are taught to stoke their most violent impulses, so that they may unleash upon the enemies of the faith. As sisters spur and engage in trials of combat and endurance, loud hailers broadcast heretical deeds of the faithless and tales of treachery that inspire within the Sisters of the Bloody Rose a raw hatred. So they literally listen to the deeds of heretics and faithless and all that to essentially just continuously fuel the fire of their hatred towards them. Where the Sisters of other orders practice self-flagellation, or sit in silent reverie and meditation, the Sisters of the Bloody Rose learn to summon a righteous fury, even when deprived of provocations. Sisters must learn to channel this inner fury with discipline. For loss of control is as great a sin as showing mercy to a heretic. In battle, the Order of the Bloody Rose shows great discipline in the opening exchange, advancing in a tight formation, using the weight of fire using the weight of fire to force a breakthrough, or enacting flanking maneuvers and feints to draw their opponents out of their defensive positions. Only when the foe has overcommitted and left themselves exposed do the Sisters of the Bloody Rose charge into combat, bringing to bear chain swords and power weapons, or bludgeoning their enemies to death with bolt gun stock. So they literally, instead of shooting an enemy, they'll literally take their bolt gun and beat someone over the head with it until they die. That's how angry these women are. Bringing to bear chain swords and power weapons, or bludgeoning their enemies to death with the bolt gun stocks, knees, and elbows. The Sisters of the Order of the Bloody Rose believe that sheer martial ferocity to be a manifestation of the Emperor's will. So, quote, we survived in Karamath City to find a charnel pit, the like of which I shall not soon forget. The dead carpeted the streets in their thousands, and ragged remnants of cultist revolutionaries laying side by side with the corpses of the Frataris militia. The starving populace crawled from hovels and ruins to prostrate themselves before the begging, The starving populace crawled from hovel and ruin to prostrate themselves before us, begging desperately for food and water, and could ill afford to spare. Of the Order of the Bloody Rose, there was no sign, save for the burnt-out remains of a single rhino transport. It later transpired that the sisters had passed through the city in a brief, vengeful storm of righteous violence, putting every rebel to the sword and reducing this once productive city to a ruinscape. According to the few survivors, the sisters departed as swiftly as they had arrived, leaving Karanath a decimated population to fend for itself. And this is a quote from Lieutenant Idris, and this is a quote from Lieutenant Idris Lothon. I believe I'm saying that properly. So that is it for the Order of the Bloody Rose. So these women do not mess around. They are hyper violent and believe in hate and, stowing your hate, saving it, and then when it comes time to battle, to completely unleash it. So these women are brutal, and not just brutal as in kill your enemies and slaughter them all. I mean brutal as in torturing them and everything. That's crazy, but I also love them. They are a great, great faction. So next up, we have the Order of the Ebon Chalice. Now, these women wear armor that is black and white, and usually have black hair. Again, very interesting. What is cool about the Sororitas, as well as many other factions in Warhammer, is, you can choose your army based on the lore, or, as I did, you can choose your army just based on what you personally think looks cool. And of course, if you read through all this and none of the color schemes suit you, you can paint your own. So, they're your models. You can do whatever you want with them. There's so many people that say oh, this model has to be this color. But, you bought them, you can paint them, pink and purple, with rainbows on their armor for, all that matters. As long as you like them, that's all that matters. So, let us begin looking at the Order of the Ebon Chalice. So, the perfection of sanctity. Steadfast in their adherence to tradition, and indomitable in combat. The Sisters of the Ebon Chalice seek to protect the material discipline of the daughters of the Emperor. They employ tactics that have been honed over millennia to annihilate their enemies of the Imperium. The Order of the Ebon Chalice was the first of the Order militant to be created, with its sisters drawn from the convent prioris on Holy Terra. By the way, I should have mentioned this sooner, but Terra is Earth. That's just what they call Earth in 40k. So if you hear me say Terra, they are talking about Earth in the future. Where was I? Its founder, leader, and matriarch was Alicia Dominicia, the slayer of Goge Vandir, and the chosen of the Emperor. Under her leadership, the Sisters of the Ebon Chalice quickly established themselves as exemplars against as the exemplars against which all other orders would be measured from the order's founding. Dominica herself served as the martial and spiritual leader. Under her command, the Sisters of the Ebon Chalice adhered strictly to the doctrine laid out by the Daughters of the Emperor, which were the only alterations being those that employed advanced imperial weapons and armor. All sisters of the all sisters of the order possess a burning desire to emulate the perfection of their matriarch and show themselves, as she did, to be a worthy champion of the God Emperor. I wonder what the God Emperor thinks about that. Someone should probably ask him. Unlike their fellow sisters, who struck out across the galaxy, the Order of the Ebon Chalice took responsibility for protecting the sanctity of Terra and the Segmentum Solar. The Segmentum Solar is our solar system. So I actually did not know that these women are just focused on protecting Terra, which is actually really cool. Over centuries, the Order expanded their parishes. Over the centuries, the Order expanded their parish by rooting out cults buried in the bowels of hive worlds, eradicating mutation infestations festering on distant outposts, and cleansing shrine worlds overrun by Xenos. Their servants of chaos were hunted with particular vigor and subjected to damning oaths of cleansing flames. Even those who claimed to be loyal were not safe, for the Sisters of the Ebon Chalice exposed any whose religious practices deviated from the imperial creed. Apostates and heretics were excoriated by the million, and the population refused to conform to the one true faith. Entire cities were burned to ash. No sinner was safe from Dominicia's righteous order. Alicia Dominia was eventually martyred during the scouring of Friedeswide's world. Upon news of her demise, the bell tower of the ecclesiastical palace tolled dolefully for days. Her martyrdom left a void in the command structure of the Adepta Sororitas that could never be truly refilled. While many have served as Canoness Superior of the Ebon Chalice since Dominicia's demise, to possess this rank is not so much a mark of honor as a grave and thankless responsibility, for none consider themselves truly worthy of following in the matriarch's hallowed footsteps. So, quote, "O most holy Emperor, why are you it?" So, quote, "O most holy Emperor, we are your eternal servants. We beseech thee for the strength to slay the heretic, the mutant, and the witch. We daughters of Dominicia pledge unto you soul and sword. We shall carry your light into the darkness, and with it purify the unclean. We are your swords, your shields, your faithful. We shall never be broken." And this is the litany of devotion. I'm assuming this is some kind of prayer or rite of passage for becoming a member of the Ebony Chalice. The Sisters of the Ebon Chalice have always strived to embody Dominicia's perfection in all that they do. while they have waged wars of faith across the galaxy. Many of their sanctuaries lie within the Segmentum Solar, which is again our current solar system. They view themselves as the first and foremost of the Order's militant, the example to which all others must aspire. On the rare occasion that a group of sisters showed deviant practices, it is the Order of the Ebon Chalice it is the Order of the Ebon Chalice that is to dispatched to mete out the Emperor's justice. So these women seem very interested in protecting Holy Terror and the solar system, which is really interesting. A lot of the factions, essentially every faction, goes wherever they are needed in the galaxy, whereas these women are like, no, Terra, aka Earth, and the soul system are key parts, so we need to defend those. Anyway, let's move on to our next order. So next up we have the Order of the Argent Shroud. So our next order is the Order of the Argent Shroud. Now, the Order of the Argent Shroud sisters have this mixture of silver and red armor. They have primarily silver armor with a red cape or red cloth. So the metal of the armor is silver, the cloth is red. And as for the hair, they mainly have black hair with either, with one long white streak through it. Probably my favorite hairstyle of any order. I just think it looks really cool, especially with the silver armor. I think it looks really nice. So let's get right into it. So the Order of the Argent Shroud. Let me just make sure the book is in frame, just in case you want to read along. So the Order of the Argent Shroud, the Silver Spearhead. The Order of the Argent Shroud are renowned for the speed of their assaults, striking like silver bolts. They are often the first into the fray, where their faith in the Emperor and their protector saint shines brightly. The matriarch of the Argent Shroud is Sylvana, the first of the daughters of the Emperor to be martyred, and the most mysterious of the Dominatia's bodyguards. That's interesting. So she was the first Sororitas to be martyred. Very interesting. Her service was tragically brief. Soon after Dominatia had been found. Soon after Dominatia had founded the Order of the Ebon Chalice, the remaining sisters of the convent Prioris were placed under Sylvana's command, only for her to then be struck down before she could launch a single war of faith. The most reliable accounts of her death suggest that she was poisoned by a death cult assassin. The motives behind her murder are less clear. Some claim the killer was a traitor who remained loyal to Goj Randir. Others persist that the Alpha Legion, which is a Space Marine Legion, had a hand in her demise. The Sisters of the Argent Shroud remain convinced that the true target of the assassination was Domitia, and that Sylvana sacrificed herself. The Journal of Ecclesiarch Alexis states that in the wake of the matriarch's death, the body lay in a state within the inner sanctum of the convent prioris. After 7 days, when the sister of the order Vespilla came to collect her corpse, they found it had mysteriously vanished. Only a faint silver image of her bones remained, imprinted upon the death shroud, and its form, this relic that the order derives its name. Okay, so that's how they got the name. Interesting. During her lifetime, Sylvana was renowned for her acts of bravery and faithfulness, yet not a single word spoken by her has been recorded in any surviving transcriptions or accounts. In any surviving transcriptions or accounts of the Age of Apostasy. Her sisters follow the matriarch's example, speaking only rarely and entering long periods of silence whenever they engage in combat training. As they march to battle, the Sisters of the Argent Shroud still utter hymns of wrathful purgation, but rarely beseech the Emperor for aid, believing that it is too far more righteous to provide their services to the God Emperor than to pray for his favor. The Order of the Argent Shroud are fearless and bold in their methods of making war, eschewing complex strategies in favor of swell and direct action. Their invasion cathedrals plummet from orbit alongside formations of silver-armored sisters, teeming masses of Xenos, congregations of heretic cultists, and bands of mutated heretic Astartes, are swept aside by the alacrity of the swept aside by the alacrity and intensity of the Argent Shroud's assault. Jump pack equipped Seraphim and Seraphim outflank the enemy to destroy artillery and slaughter command retinues, while Dominion squads, a Dominion squad is like a slightly different version of your standard battle sister squad, by the way, through fortifications. These swift assaults are followed by rapid withdrawals, leaving the foe to reel in confusion as the Sisters of the Argent Shroud reform and attack with renewed vigor. The Argent Shroud rarely communicate their battle plans to allied forces, to outside forces, to the ire of many imperial commanders. However, their effectiveness in battle cannot be denied, and they have been the saviors of many an imperial task force. So, quote, "The orcs came forth in their tens of thousands, a roaring mass of green flesh from which there seemed no escape. Our Savior appeared from the heavens, borne through the clouds on wings of flame. The Sisters of the Argent Shroud swept down upon the orcs like avenging angels. Their lilting prayers carried across the field of battle, lifting spirits and spurring soldiers to action. Their assault broke the orcs' resolve, and with lasgun and chainsword did we feed the strangle vines with Xeno blood. This is a quote from Zevros Dresk, an Armageddon old hunter. Very cool. So these women seem to be very much so these women have a lot of things going for them apart from their armor, which looks amazing. They are very secretive with their plans, and they tend to use a lot of seraphim and zephyrim. So their attacks are kind of very fast and hit and run. So like it said, you know, they'll assault your base and then quickly retreat, regroup, rearm, and then come back at you again while you are still trying to figure out what happened the first time, which is amazing. I love the which is amazing. I love the Argent Shroud. So we have our final of the Majoris orders, and this is the Order of the Sacred Rose. So, the Order of the Sacred Rose. So, first off, their armor colors is pure white with the tiniest hints of black. I'm not sure about their hair color or hairstyle, but the armor is very interesting, with it being pure white with just very, very few black accents. I'm assuming it makes them look a lot more angelic in the heat of things, especially for their seraphim. But yeah, so this is actually the order that I know the least about. Apart from the Martyred Lady, I have known very little of each of the different orders, so I am actually learning this along with you guys, which is a blast. So, Order of the Sacred Rose, the light of the light of battle's serenity. The Order of the Sacred Rose marches towards singing hymns of hope and salvation, their lilting voices lifting the spirits of the beleaguered faithful, their bolt guns and flamers unleashing their holy wrath in a storm of violence. I like these women already. The Sisters of the Sacred Rose see themselves as simply devout servants of the God Emperor. In their eyes, they are conduits of his divine will. Through their words are his teachings and wisdom passed to the masses. By their actions is his glory made manifest. The order teaches that victory is earned through faith alone. At the outset of each battle, war, or crusade, the Sisters of the Sacred Rose At the outset of each battle, war, or crusade, the Sisters of the Sacred Rose trust that the righteous slaughter of their enemies has been preordained by their divine patron, Saint Arabella. They do not weep or mourn when one of their number falls, for they know that this too is part of the Emperor's plan. A single martyr can spark a fire in 1,000 souls. Wow, that line goes incredibly hard. Giving rise to a blazing pyre of faith that cannot be extinguished. These beliefs give the Sisters of the Sacred Rose an air of devout serenity that is reminiscent of that held by their matriarch Arabella, known for being the most level-headed amongst Alicia, Dominus's bodyguard, and referred to as the Liberator by her followers. Arabella sought to free humanity from its fear, doubt, and the evils of faithlessness. It is widely held amongst the sisterhood that Arabella was instrumental in negotiations between Dominicia and the custodian who led the matriarchs before the Golden Throne. Though she was a formidable warrior in her own right, Arabella's true strength was in the many miraculous miracle events that are said to have happened in her presence. Legends tell of foes gazing up at the matriarch and screaming as they beheld her magnificent glory, blood streaming from their melting eyes. Others describe masses of Xeno's warriors being burned to ash by blazing beams of golden light. Arabella was canonized posthumously, though. Although she is said to have performed continuous miracles during her lifetime, the circumstances of her martyrdom are not recorded in any existing ecclesiastical text. But in the 38th millennium, the Order of the Sacred Rose was founded in her name. In the Wars of the Faith, they have fought since they have brought the light of the Emperor to regions long thought lost to darkness. They freed the oppressed from the yoke of the heretical tyrants, purging entire systems of insidious Xenos invaders, and upon these liberated territories established sanctuaries of their order. These bastions of the faith serve as outposts of divinity in the most distant corners of the Imperium. The bulk of their strength is situated in the Ultima Segmentum, but like their matriarch, they bring their faith to bear across the galaxy. Many of the Order's holdfasts are located within the bounds of the Imperium Nihilus, yet few have succumbed to the nightmares unleashed upon the section of the galaxy by the opening of the Great Rift. The Sisters of the Order of the Sacred Rose stand as beacons of faith, purity, and hope, preventing fear and despair from taking hold, even in the face of myriad horrors. The Order of the Sacred Rose often goes to war alongside ecclesiastical battle conclaves and hastily assembled bands of fraternis militia. These zealous fighters help boost the force available to the Order and ensure that even the smallest and furthest flung missions These zealous fighters help boost the force available to the Order and ensure that even their smallest and furthest flung missions possess the numbers required to defend their holy shrines and consecrated sanctuaries. So, quote, "Scorn not the unwashed masses, for should their pious faith be pure, even the lowliest servant of the God Emperor may rise to greatness." And this was said by Sister Superior Liona Serena. So these women seem incredible. So while all of the others seem to be extremely military focused, the Order of the Sacred Rose is extremely pious. You know, they believe that the God Emperor will see them through the war and will protect them. And they seem to be the most religious group out of all of the orders that we have covered. So that is it for the major orders. Now we are going to move on to the minor orders. So before we go on, after we have just finished talking about the orders, I feel like this is a good time to mention this miniature. Now this is the miniature called the Triumph of Saint Catherine. So after everything we just talked about, you know that Saint Catherine was a extremely prominent figure in the Adepta Sororitas and was martyred. So this miniature serves as her funeral procession. So I'm not going to go into what it does on the tabletop, however, it is an extremely powerful piece. The reason I wanted to show you guys this is what I find really cool is we have all of these people surrounding the coffin. So this is the remains of St. Catherine there in the coffin. But these people around her are all representatives or the leaders of each of the orders that we just talked about. So we have the Ebon Chalice, we have the Bloody Rose, we have the Martyred Lady, and you can kind of see it in some of them. For example, this lady here, I don't know if you can see it, she has a heart on her banner, or on her staff. Here we have a sister with a brazier. Here we have a sister with what looks to be a bowl of blood, I think. And then at the very, very back here, we have this sister who is reading some scripture. We also have a bunch of cherubs flying around holding up. So there's this massive, massive scroll that the cherubs are holding up. By the way, the cherubs are, what's the Warhammer term? The cherubs are servitors, but they are meant to look like this to essentially look like cherubim angels. So I just wanted to show you this. As you can see, the sister in the front looks extremely militaristic with her armor, her long sword, and her shield. Then we have this sister with a candle on her back and swinging some incense. Then her with her hood up and a kind of staff with a heart on it. That is her order's sigil. Then on this side, we have this sister bearing a brazier. And then on this side, we also have this sister with a candelabra on her back, bearing a bowl of what looks like blood or some kind of gore. So I just thought that this would be a great time to mention this miniature after we just read what we just read. And of course, there is Catherine herself. So yeah, if you are planning on starting a Sororitas army, this is essentially a must-have. If you would like to learn more about how this actually works in-game, it will be covered in part 2 when we are going through the data sheets for each unit. Anyway, that's enough about miniatures. Let's get back to the book. Okay, so let's continue. So we just covered the major orders, and now here are the minor orders. So let's just dive straight on into it. So these are the orders minoris. So spread across the Imperium are hundreds of smaller orders militant. Some have numbers enough to oversee large parishes, whereas others maintain a single sanctuary. Each of these orders minoris is a spiritual descendant of one of the 6 original orders, but operates independently in processing their wars of faith. So these are very much similar to the successor chapters for the Space Marines. So, for example, the Blood Angels was one of the original Space Marine legions, and then one of the successor chapters for that was the Lamenters. So, same kind of idea, but obviously not as powerful as the Space Marines. So let's just get started. I'm going to zoom in and we will begin reading. There's not that much info on these guys, but still we're going to read it anyway. So the first one is the Order of the Glowing Chalice. As spiritual descendants of the Order of the Ebon Chalice, The Sisters of the Glowing Chalice are exacting in their standards of faith and martial prowess. They have established a chain of sanctuaries across the core world portions of the Vedal subsector and have battled multiple chaos insurrections alongside the scions of the 9th Lotan Gorganas. I'm not sure what they are. When launching assaults, these sisters attack with the Terran Dawn, striking when terror rises over a war-torn world's horizon. Though the planets on which they battle are far too distant for the light of the Sol system to reach, the Sisters of the Glowing Chalice still feel the Emperor's illumination falling upon them. Thus emboldened, they fight with a furious zeal which Saint Domitia herself would be proud of. And we can see that there is a picture up on top. So they have a very similar style of hair with the black and the white stripe. The next is the Order of the Thorn. So the Order of the Thorn is a rampaging force that butchers its way to victory. Having adapted the martial practices of the Orders of the Bloody Rose, Sisters of the Thorn enter prolonged states of fury, hacking and slashing at foes until they are all slaughtered before them, or until they are made martyrs. In this way they seek to recreate the last moments of Saint Mina's life, transforming themselves into whirlwinds of death before which the faithless cannot hope to stand against. By battle's end, the pale armor worn by these sisters is covered in crimson gore. While the skin of those placed to rest in the Order's crypts is left permanently covered with the ichor of their hated foes. That is really cool. So they are buried while still covered in the blood of the enemies that they've slain. That is so cool and so metal. So the next one, oh, by the way, we also have this picture up here of this woman with shorter hair, and she has a lot of, I'm not sure if those are scars or blood stains on her face, but based on what it says, I'm going to assume they are blood stains. You can also see a couple of blood stains on her collar of her armor, I guess, and on her right shoulder pad. The next is the Order of the Iron Veil. The Sisters of the Iron Veil are renowned for their mental and spiritual resilience. They specialize in launching surgical strikes into war zones where psychic warfare is being used to manipulate reality. Their order was once a preceptor of the Argent Shroud that was thought lost during the Cenobite uprising. When the last Cenobite prince had been hunted down and killed, the sisters were found intact. The sanctuary had not only endured the horrors that had torn through the subsector, but had kept their world from devouring itself, and had even continued recruiting battle sisters. Shortly after they were named a new order by the decree of the ecclesiarch. Very cool. So here we have a picture of one of the sisters. She is bald, so this isn't a hairstyle of any of the other sisters. So it looks like they kind of very much are doing their own thing style-wise. Also, it doesn't say what color their armor is, but I'm assuming that the ones that are directly based off of one of the major orders have the same color scheme. So, next up, we have the Order of the Ashen Shrine. Where the Order of the Ashen Shrine march to war, Pyrrhic miracles soon follow. Many are the stories of the sisters driving their enemy into volcanic fissures that have torn open the battlefield, of burning meteorites raining down from the formations on their foes. Raining down on the formations of their foes, and of war machines exploding into destruction infernos when fired upon. Like the sacred rose from which they were split, the warriors of the Ashen Shrine revere Saint Arabella, believing that the emperor spoke through her, so they essentially think she is a prophet. Where was I? To emulate their matriarch, the sisters wield flamers, believing that gouts of fire signify the emperor's holy word. Thus do many of the order's sisters bear terrible burns upon their flesh, each as a reminder of their deity's wrath. That is really interesting. So we see this woman up here. So she has red hair and has one cloudy eye, so she's half blind, so I feel that. But it is interesting that they have kind of taken this to extreme. The Sororitas Holy Trinity is the bolter, the melter, and the flamer. So but this chapter, the Ashen Shrine, seems to mainly favor the flamer to the point that they actively burn themselves. That is some dedication and some zealotry if I have ever heard it. Next, we have the Order of the Wounded Heart. Among the orders that have split from the Valorous Heart, the Wounded Heart is unique in that its sisters recite only a single verse from the Passion of Saint Lucia. The verse in question, verse 482, describes how the saint's right hand was flensed, and yet through her suffering she remained faithful as an act of communion. The sisters have the Wounded Heart also degloved their own right hands. Oh my God. Ritually stripping themselves of the skin to keep their flesh and nerves raw. In this way, they feel Lucia's pain wherever they grip their weapon and pull the trigger, allowing them to meditate on this Saint Lucia's horrific execution as they unleash destruction and death upon the world. Oh my God, these women are intense. In case you are unfamiliar, and if you are unfamiliar, I apologize that you are about to learn this, but the term deglove essentially means having all of the skin on your hands flayed off. So it's just the bare muscle and tendon showing. So they purposely do that in kind of reverence of Saint Lucia's martyrdom, and they use that and they use that hand when they fight. So every time they pull the trigger or hold a sword, it's just pure agony. Oh my God, that is awful. And this is, I'm sorry, I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent over like a minor a minor order, but genuinely that's just absolutely crazy to me. That's something I would expect from like the major orders, but a minor order doing that is like even crazier. Okay, I need to get my mind off degloving. Oh my God. So the final one is the Order of the Golden Light, one of the smallest of the orders militant. The Order of the Golden Light has nonetheless inspired great hope and fear across numerous wars of faith. They are distant descendants of the Order of our Martyred Lady, yet they continue to embody the fiery passion of the matriarch Saint Catherine. Saint Catherine, again, is the woman in the coffin in the miniature that I showed you in the funeral procession. On 2 separate occasions, the entire order has been martyred in battle, only for the golden-clad sisters. Only for the golden-clad sisters to reappear in a nearby war zone. There are whispers that the Scholar Progeminum databanks contain no record of the Order's recruiting new members, giving rise to the belief that the Sisters of the Golden Light are all martyrs who have been resurrected. So that's crazy. So this is an order of essentially undead sisters. That's so cool. And this is the first time out of all of these that we actually get their color scheme. So they wear golden armor, which is quite cool. And despite being a kind of branch off from our martyred lady, they have, or at least the woman in the picture here, has black hair instead of white, which is interesting. I like that. I like that they're not just carbon copies of each other. I like that they are very different, but just like take small inspirations. If you can call degloving yourself a small inspiration, but you know, I'm sorry, I genuinely, I can't get over that. Oh my god. Okay, so next page is the non-militant orders. So up until now we have covered the large orders, so that would include the Order of the Martyred Lady, the Arch and Shroud, the Ebon Chalice, and so on, as well as some of the lesser-known orders, but still militant orders. So these are the non-militant orders. So I'm assuming that this is going to cover units and orders such as the Dialogus Order and the Hospitaller Order. But let's just dive right in and see for ourselves. The daughters of the Emperor were more than a community of warriors, and devoted themselves to a wide range of disciplines by which they could serve the God Emperor. Many of these disciplines survived the age of apostasy and have been further developed by the Adepta Sororitas throughout specialized categories of non-militant orders. While the orders militant are the most obvious and well-known of the sisterhood, they are assisted in their roles as protectors of the faith by their less heralded non-militant sisters. While not classified as soldiers, these faithful servants of the imperial creed face many dangers and hardships in the pursuit of their duties. Okay, so first up we have the Order Hospitaller. So the Hospitaller, just off the top of my head, is the Sororitas medic unit. On the tabletop, they serve as your healer unit, able to revive certain sisters of battle, reduce their wounds and stuff like that, whereas in the lore, they serve with the Sororitas, the Imperial Guard, and even the Astartes as just medics. But they do have a dark side to them, but I won't get into that. I will wait and see if this touches on that. So, let's get started. Order Hospitaller. The Sisters of the Order Hospitaller provide surgeons, physicians, and nurses to many arms of the imperial military. The sisters of these orders express their faith by tending to the wounded in horrific battlefield conditions, performing surgery on warriors felled by jagged shrapnel, digging filth and contagion from open wounds, and administering rites of those beyond salvation. Compassionate and dignified, the Sisters Hospitaller are often regarded as holy figures by those whom they have tended. The talents of the Sisters Hospitaller are constantly tested as humanity's myriad foes continue to unleash all manners of esoteric weaponry upon the armies of the Imperium. The parasitic living munition vomited forth by the Tyranids, the flensing gauze technology of the Necrons, and the empiric contagions born to battle by the Death Guard All of these have been studied by the Orders Hospitaller to better understood their devastating effects. Within the sanctuaries of the Order Hospitaller are grand libraries filled with their accumulated findings. This research is often shared with others, particularly elements of the Inquisition, such as the Ordo Sepulchrum, I hope I said that correctly, whose task it is to learn more about the many plagues and diseases afflicting humanity's realm. The Order's families often call upon the Sisters Hospitaller to map out the genealogy of those afflicted by rampant mutation. So crucial is the work of the Orders Hospitaller that they have been granted special disposition. So crucial is the work of the Order Hospitaller that they have been granted special dispensation to delve into areas usually deemed heretical. Only an august body as devout as the Adepta Sororitas can be trusted to retain a purity of thought and deed when exposed to such unholy sciences. The Sisters Hospitaller spend much of their time studying xenospecies to pinpoint weaknesses in the anatomy and biology. The most gruesome duties of the Orders Hospitallers, however, are undertaken on behalf of the Ecclesiarchy's confessors. A confessor is someone who works for an inquisitor, so they are almost like the second in command of an inquisitor's employees, and more often than not, a confessor is the one who usually does most of the dirty work for the inquisitor. Just in case you guys aren't super familiar with Warhammer. Sorry, where was I? To extract confessions from heretics, these pitiless interrogations require the lives of the detainees, reattach severed limbs, suture mortal wounds, or violently resuscitate a subject dozens of times before a confessor can extract the information that they seek. So that is the Sister Hospitaller, and wow, they definitely have two very different sides. So on the one hand, you have the very kind-hearted, angelic, almost like World War I, World War II nurse vibes, where they just help everyone. You know, they're with the civilians, they're with the Sororitas, they're with the Space Marines, they're with the Imperial Guard. But then you also have the darker side, where, you know, they're studying Xenos to try and find a biological weapon. They're helping inquisitors and confessors during torture sessions to keep the subject alive so that he doesn't die from the torture that's being inflicted upon him. So yeah, they definitely have a good and a light side, and that's one of the reasons that they are one of my favorite non-combat orders. On the tabletop, they're also pretty fun. They just serve as a healing unit. They are fairly expensive, and I know a lot of people don't really use them, but personally I do enjoy using them just because I think it's cool to have one on the tabletop. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so next up is the Order Dialogus. So the Dialogus is the unit that everyone's probably familiar with, even if you aren't that big a fan of Warhammer. When you think of the Sisters of Battle, they are the nun/pope looking unit that brings 0 weapons into battle, just brings a podium and a book of scripture and just preaches the entire time. She is an extremely good unit to have because she can provide some amazing buffs to your army. And yeah, that's just a little bit about the tabletop. Let's get into the lore. So, the Order Dialogus. The Sisters Dialogus serve as scholars and advisors for the sisterhood and also elements of the wider Imperium. They are expert linguists and translators of texts both Xeno and human, heretical and holy, and spend many years learning languages used in esoteric scripts. Much of their study is spent collecting and studying legends and myths of the God Emperor before his internment within the Golden Throne. By piecing together these tales, they hope to glean information. The Orders Dialogus are regularly called upon by the Sisterhood and under the Ecclesiarchy for their expertise in cryptography and code breaking. These skills are also utilized by commanders of the Astra Militarum, who are in constant need of an edge over their myriad foes. So our next section is other non-militant orders. So these are non-militant orders that are not either dialogi or hospitalers. Many other orders provide additional services to the Adepta Sororitas. The Ecclesiarchy and other imperial institutions deemed worthy of their aid. Some orders are tasked with a particularly focused duty, as is the case with the Order Fenestris, who maintain an illuminated armor-glass panes that adorn the Imperium's most holy shrines and cathedrals. Other orders carry out sacred duties that give them a great deal of influence within the God Emperor's domain. The orders Subine operate at the fringes of the Imperium, accompanying missionaries Galaxia to newly rediscovered human territories. I'm assuming those are like missionaries from our world. There they infiltrate any society that may oppose the arrival of the Imperium, setting themselves up as prophets of the Emperor, preaching the Imperial Creed in secret and inciting revolt against the religion's leaders of a world before the arrival of the missionaries Galaxia. Some types of non-militant orders are limited to special regions of the Imperium. The order's princeps exists only within the hierarchy of the Covenant Sanctorum on Ophelia 7. There are scholarly sisters with augmented neural interfaces, result of Sebastian Thor's reforms. They monitor the cardinals and their debates within the Holy Synod on Terra and the Synod Ministra on Ophelia 6, ensuring that the relay of an ecclesiastical law is carried out without deviation and acting as guardians of its purity. So that is it for the main text of this section about the non-militant orders. It is interesting. I did not know that any of the orders that we just talked about existed, and I think that's really cool. So next we have the showcase section. So this is just to do with showcasing various miniatures and some of the dioramas that they are in. As you can see, there is a massive battle scene going on here. So we will not spend too much time on this section, as it's just to do with the miniatures more than anything else, but let us start. So if we look down at these two final figures here, on the left we have a Sister Dogmata of the Order of Our Martyred Lady. So she was one of the miniatures that I showed you, and she has a very similar paint job to mine, except my girl has a helmet and the one in the book does not. And then to her right we have a Hospitaller. Now I'm not sure what order this Hospitaller is meant to be part of. I think maybe the Martyred Lady, just based on the other sister being Martyred Lady, but maybe I am mistaken. She could very easily be something like a Ebon Chalice sister, but I think she's Martyred Lady. And again, we saw a Hospitaller earlier. Actually, she is of the Martyred Lady, because the sister she is helping on the ground is Martyred Lady. So I just thought I would show you guys that, so you guys could see a visual representation of all the stuff we've been. So here we have another diorama. So on this one we have some penitent engines, and so on this page we have some more dioramas. So this one on top shows some penitent engines fighting alongside some acroflagellants. So this is obviously a penal regiment of the Sororitas. And then for our bottom diorama, we have a Repentious superior with a bunch of Repentious around her, and the Repentious are fighting some chaos cultists. But this is why I wanted to show you guys things like the Repentious, the acroflagellants, and the Repentious superior. Now, this unit here I should probably also talk about, since it's in the same vein. So this is called a penitent engine. Okay, so these are some of the penitent engines that we had just seen in the showcase section. So what actually is a penitent engine? So penitent engines are used when the Sororitas have captured heretics or some kind of person who has in some way, shape or form sinned or blasphemed or done anything remotely heretical, whether they're actually a heretic or whether they just cursed under their breath at the wrong time. It really doesn't make that much of a difference. So they are strapped into these. Let me actually pick one up so you can see. They are strapped into these mech-like units. They are fully chained up and cannot move, and have a plethora of chemicals constantly being fed into their system. Most of the time, this is pain chemicals, or chemicals that cause extreme pain, extreme fear, anxiety, stress, all that stuff. However, they are then sent into battle. That is the sisters' way of trying to redeem them. That, you know, they don't want to do this, but from the sisters' point of view, that this is them giving these sinners a way of redemption in the eyes of the Emperor. So they are equipped with these two massive buzzsaws on either arm. Some of them have some variations. Some of them have saws with firearms on them. And when they enter combat, all of those pain stimulants stop and are instantly replaced with any kind of drug to make you feel euphoric and happy and just so high it's unreal. It's to make it so that they want to crave battle and crave killing the enemy, purely just so they can get some respite from their own agony. And the more they kill, the more painkillers and opioids and stuff they are given. Now, after the battle is over, the nice drugs stop and the bad drugs start back up again, making them ever eager to get back into the fray of things. Now, I don't know if you can see, but this guy here is blindfolded with two tubes going into somewhere on his head. And also, if you look, these are men. So these are not Sororitas members. These are men who have blasphemed or done something in some way. Here is another one of the models. As you can see, they have this very industrial look to them, which I think is quite cool. And then same here, buzzsaws, and yeah, very cool model. And they are great at shredding infantry. But there is actually one other variation of the penitent engine. So here are two units. One of them is called a mortifier, and the other one is a repencher. I believe we've actually already both talked about repenters, and I've already shown some repenters in this video, or if not in this video, then in part 1. But to put it briefly, repenters are sisters of battle who, for the most part, become repenchers against their will. If a battle sister flees in battle or shows cowardice, she is stripped of her armor, stripped of her bolter and all of her firearms, and is sent into battle with rags covering her for armor, with a power sword, and with pages from a holy book to protect her. And the way the sisters see it is that if they die, then they went out and died for the God Emperor and redeemed themselves. However, if they somehow manage to live, they are redeemed in the eyes of the Emperor, as far as the sisters are concerned, because why else would they survive if it wasn't the God Emperor's direct intervening? And after this, they are fully welcomed back into the sisterhood with open arms. There's no lingering feelings or anything, or people disliking someone because they were a repencher. As far as the sisters are concerned, if the Emperor showed you mercy and told you that you deserve to live, who are they to question the God Emperor? So, how does this relate to pain engines? Also, I should just also mention that not all repenchers become repenchers against their will. Some do it willingly, not many, but some, just to see if the God Emperor really does love them. For example, the famous living saint, Saint Celestine, was a repencher, not because she did anything wrong, but because she wanted to. And turns out she was right. The God Emperor did favor her, and she lived. But, so, like I said, how does this come back around to the penitent engines? So, like I said, a repencher is a battle sister who fled as a battle sister and was caught and was made to be a repencher to redeem herself. However, if a repencher flees, that is a big no-no. If that happens, they are put into a very special penitent engine just for fleeing repenchers, called a mortifier. Now, this is the mortifier here, and its armaments are very, very similar. However, they have, I believe, somewhere on them they have a flamethrower as well, or some kind of firearm. But the main difference that you can see in terms of its design is whereas the standard penitent engine just had the man out in the open, this one has an Iron Maiden that the repencher is put into. And once they enter this thing, they do not come out until they are dead. Because as far as the sisters are concerned, they tried to give you a chance to redeem yourself in the eyes of the Emperor, and you ran away yet again. So you are doomed to this fate. You are put into this Iron Maiden. Let me see if I can get some better light on it. And shut in here. And same treatment as the penitent engines. You are given a constant flood of medications to make you feel pain, stress, anger, fear, all of the above. And then when combat starts, you are given a bunch of endorphins and drugs to make you happy. So that is it for this little section. I just thought I would showcase these because we were talking about them in the showcase section. And it's always nice, in my opinion at least, to actually get a visual representative as well as a bit of the lore behind why these things even exist and what their purpose is. But yeah, back to the book. And with that, everyone, that is going to be it for this series. We are not going to be covering the data sheets as I did in the the Militarum Codex video. It was too time consuming, and it was just me just rattling off numbers. It wasn't fun to listen to. However, if you would like me to do the data sheets for the Sororitas, leave a comment and I will absolutely do it. Personally, I just don't find it that enjoyable in terms of listening, and also this episode is long enough as it is, so if that does happen, that will be in a part 3. But for now, that is going to be it for wrapping up our Adepta Sororitas Codex videos. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed making this. As much as I love my art books, there is something about the Warhammer Codexes that have that perfect blend of really good stories and deep lore about a faction paired with some incredible artwork. So let me know a couple of things in the comments, because I'm curious. One, if you do play Sisters, which order do you play and why? I personally play the Order of the Martyred Lady, just because I really like their color scheme. However, my favorite order has to be the Order of the Argent Shroud. I just think they are so cool. But the standard red, white, and black, I know they are the Ultramarines of the Sororitas, and I do not like the Ultramarines, but, you know, I think they look cool. And secondly, what codex do you want me to cover next? I have every Imperial army other than Imperial Knights. So I have Space Marines, Blood Angels, Grey Knights, Adeptus Mechanicus, Custodes. I feel like I'm forgetting one other one that I'm drawing a complete blank on. But yeah, let me know what codex you want me to cover next, and I'm actually in the current work of building my 7th army. And with that comes a new codex, and when that arrives, after I have shown off the army, I will do the codex video. I don't want to show the codex, because then that will give away the surprise of what the army is. Anyway guys, thank you as always for watching. Your viewership means the absolute world to me. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.